Two Canadian patients with spinal cord injuries have received Neuralink brain implants that allow them to control a computer with their thoughts. Both are men around 30 years old. They have limited or no ability to use their hands. They're part of the first clinical trial outside of the United States testing Elon Musk's wireless brain chip. Neuralink was first introduced in 2020 and implanted in a paralyzed American in 2024. The Canadian patients will be monitored for at least a year, with the potential for more additional patients to be added. Both men will be monitored for safety and whether the chip adds value to their quality of life. In the coming weeks and months, they'll learn to type on a computer without touching a keyboard.
Snowden says he was astonished back then at the access he had at his fingertips, most notably including a computer program that, as he put it, could get inside your thought process.
When I think about an instance that really just struck me as, oh my God, we can do this, and that we can do it to anyone, was that people at NSA, analysts, can actually watch people's internet communications, watch them draft correspondence, and actually watch their thoughts form as they type. As you write a message, you know, an analyst at the NSA or any other service out there that's using this kind of attack against people can actually see you write sentences and then backspace over your mistakes and then change the words and then kind of pause and think about what you wanted to say and then change it. And it's this extraordinary intrusion, not just into your communications, your finished messages, but your actual drafting process, into the way you think.
What if we could bridge the gap between the human mind and computers? We can use computing to understand the human brain, but also to leverage its full potential.
What if interacting with technology was as seamless and intuitive as just having a thought? We can do things like fly a drone, play an instrument, play a game, drive a car, all with just our minds.
OpenBCI stands for Open Source Brain-Computer Interface. We create open source tools for biosensing and neuroscience.
We turned to Lenovo and AMD to give us the computing power we need to create these groundbreaking tools.
At OpenBCI, we're integrating state-of-the-art neurotechnology with artificial intelligence and wearable computing.
The BCI community is a group of people interested in expanding the capabilities of their bodies and minds. They're passionate about finding ways to leverage technology to assist their lives and the lives of others.
We started OpenBCI to lower the barrier to entry for brain-computer interfacing, and we did so with the hopes that our approach would allow for the technology to be adopted into the consumer landscape in an ethical and equitable way. The Galia headset is a state-of-the-art wearable device designed to integrate neurotechnology with augmented and virtual reality. It enables brain-computer interface applications. Galia is one of the first, if not the first, available piece of technology that really closes the loop between humans and machines. It's a bi-directional brain-computer interface. Not only do we have the ability to record high-fidelity physiological and psychological data from the human mind, but we also have the ability to write back into the human mind.
Excuse me? A baking powder?
It's a bi-directional brain-computer interface. Not only do we have the ability to record high-fidelity physiological and psychological data from the human mind, but we also have the ability to right back into the human mind.
So I thought I'd take a break from all the assassination consternation going on 24/7 right now over the canonization of St. Charlie, and instead take a minute to get caught up on the latest happenings with the brain-computer interface front, as I had noticed a few headlines recently about some new Neuralink test subjects. And in the course of doing that, I came across that Snowden clip from 2014 that I'm sure I had heard at one point, since I'm pretty sure I watched that entire interview, but I guess I'd forgot about that part, or at least it hits a little differently now since BCI and remotely reading people's brain signals certainly felt a lot more like lofty science fiction type stuff back in 2014 than it does today. Because now, not only do we have Neuralink, which most folks are familiar with, but now we have Zuckerberg and Meta. They've been investing in the BCI space along with Sam Altman and OpenAI as well, getting in on the action, and I'll share some updates on that in a bit. I had also not heard of the Gallia headset developed by this OpenBCI, a joint venture of AMD and Lenovo, and they're claiming to help make BCI tech more available to the BCI community. And I swear, if I hear one more creepy technocrat agenda being peddled by way of calling it a community, I'm just gonna... I mean, that word has literally become one of my least favorite words in the entire English language. Community. Everything's a community. But anyway, it's just really weird, because I actually jumped on a live stream the other day with Rishi from Boston, and we had a real great talk about all sorts of things, and focusing quite a bit on the recent trauma-based news event that, of course, everyone is being totally consumed with. And it was really great just to talk with Richie and be encouraged, myself, by someone who's been around the conspiracy block, so to speak, more than a few times, and they're seeing exactly kind of what's going on that I am with this whole intentional emotional manipulation of people, on both sides of the political aisle, and how people on the conservative Trump side particularly are being manipulated in order to get them more on board with tighter online surveillance and ultimately a digital ID, which of course they've been pushing for years, and so many different agendas are coming together now at a very rapid pace. So I did want to thank him again for having me on, and I'll put the link in the description if you want to check that out. But another thing that we talked about in that conversation was how the idea of cell phone surveillance went from being a crazy conspiracy theory not that long ago to now, especially in the post-COVID world, it's something everyone just takes it for granted that your phone is tracking your location everywhere you go, even if it's turned off, and also listening to every word we say. And the weird part about that is that it's really hard to look back and point to any one specific moment or one thing that caused that shift in societal acceptance to occur. It's almost like it just kind of snuck in during all the craziness of COVID, and, they started talking about social distancing and using cell phone. I mean, maybe that would be sort of one thing we could point to, but even going all the way back to that Edward Snowden interview, and, who we all know was a contractor at the CIA and somehow never got extradited like other people have. Maybe the whole point of Snowden was to be a kind of controlled leak of those spying and surveillance programs in order to seed the idea into the public consciousness, so that eventually it would just be accepted as an unavoidable reality. And, what are you going to do about it? Everybody knows, but that kind of thing. I've often wondered what's up with Snowden. But then as I was poking around online for more information on these latest Neuralink trials, I came across this video by Dan Dix from 2 months ago called "Our Phones Are Reading Our Minds," and I hadn't seen this yet.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. By now, I'm sure that all of you are already well aware of the fact that our phones are listening to us 24/7, and we're constantly being shown ads for things that we've talked about needing or wanting while around our phones. When I made the following video 7 years ago now, this idea was considered conspiracy theory, but now it's conspiracy fact. When I made that video 7 years ago, I was laughed at for being a conspiracy theorist, but now everybody knows that this is exactly what goes on. Well, get ready for the naysayers to laugh again, because now I'm saying that these devices have the ability to read our minds and interpret our thoughts in real time. A few days ago on X, I said, our phones are reading our minds. Years ago, we all started noticing that we were being shown ads for things that we talked about needing or wanting while around our phones. We were laughed at as being conspiracy theorists for pointing that out, but now it's known that that is what is happening. Well, now we are being shown ads for things that we've never said out loud and have only thought about. This is not conspiracy theory. In a few years from now, it will be a known fact. Remember this post and start doing something about it. So in this video, I'm going to prove to you that this is the case, and more importantly, we'll discuss the things that can be done about it now before it's too late.
And spoiler alert, his tips on what we can do about it is basically get rid of your cell phone.
The next best thing you can do is to invest in a Faraday cage.
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I will have a link in the description for that video as well. And he's got a bunch of different sources and links along with his video showing the evidence that this technology is not just a crazy paranoid conspiracy theory, but something they've been working on for many years. And the remaining question really seems to be one of how to get the public to embrace it as a positive, beneficial thing, rather than, you know, the mother of all dystopian nightmares. And that's basically where I see companies like Neuralink and all these new competitors coming in to serve as like the public relations spearhead of this next stage of transhumanism.
So now, just to step you through what the product evolution is going to look like in the next 3 years, today what we have is 1,000 electrodes in the motor cortex, the small part of the brain that you see in this animation called the hand knob area, that allows participants control computer cursors as well as gaming consoles. Next quarter, we're planning to implant in the speech cortex to directly decode attentive words from brain signals to speech. And in 2026, not only are we going to triple the number of electrodes from 1,000 to 3,000 for more capabilities, we're planning to have our first blind sight participant to enable navigation. And in 2027, we're going to continue increasing channel counts, probably another triple, so 10,000 channels, and also enable, for the first time, multiple implants. So not just one in motor cortex, speech cortex, or visual cortex, but all of the above. And finally, in 2028, our goal is to get to more than 25,000 channels per implant, have multiple of these, have ability to access any part of the brain for psychiatric conditions, pain, dysregulation, and also start to demonstrate what it would be like to actually integrate with AI.
You probably caught wind of the latest beef between Sam Altman and Elon Musk. And their latest battle is described well with this post from Nick, where he says, breaking, OpenAI and Sam Altman to invest $250 million in Merge Labs at an $850 million valuation. The new venture is called Merge Labs. Sam Altman will co-found the company. Merge Labs aims to raise $250 million from OpenAI, Sam Altman, and other investors. They aim to compete with Elon Musk's Neuralink. The plot thickens. And then Elon Musk rolled his eyes here. Well, to be fair, it could be framed as a battle, but in reality, it's just a matter of these tech players recognizing that direct brain interfaces are the play for the next decade. For example, Coinbase co-founder Fred Ursam's company Nudge is aiming to build a helmet that beams low-intensity, focused ultrasound into the brain. They recently raised $100 million. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman is leading a $12 million funding round in a similar company. Mark Zuckerberg has been working on non-invasive brain interface development at Meta for nearly a decade. But going back to Sam, given that he has transformed OpenAI from an open source, nonprofit, into a closed source, for-profit company, it's not too challenging to trust Elon much more than Sam. And when it comes to poking around my neurons, I trust Elon 100% more than Mr. Altman.
Listen,
So this guy is Ryan Tanaka. He has a YouTube channel called Neuropod. And he basically is just doing regular updates on Neuralink and overall being a shameless propagandist for the brain chippers. And maybe he's just genuinely bought into this hype himself. I don't know. I'm not accusing him of being a paid shill or anything, but that's certainly not outside the realm of possibility either. But ultimately, his content makes it pretty clear to see that these implant participants are intended to function as like a guinea pig advertising campaign, whom we're supposed to empathize with their injuries or their dementia or whatever, and then, we eventually be forced to admit that, hey, their quality of life is improved by being enhanced with brain-computer interface, so all to get people kind of over the stigma of having your brain connected to a computer. And then, as we can already see, the next obvious step is for people to look at it and go, wow, look how much faster they can interact with AI and use technology because of their BCI. And I mean, they're already pushing this narrative openly, so it's hardly speculation.
Superhuman capabilities will be a choice. Now, this was in response to Gally, who runs another channel called Hyperchange on YouTube. Shout out to Gally. He was one of the main reasons that I started YouTube in the first place. He was a great inspiration, talks about Tesla, talks about Elon, gives great updates. So highly encourage you checking him out. He says, everyone will want Neuralink as soon as possible because of the edge it gives you with AI. The tsunami of consumer demand will be insane. Yes, some will never want a chip in the brain, blah, blah, blah. But millions or maybe billions will want a better smartphone, aka personal computer that already makes us a part cyberspecies. Brain chips will have 1,000 times or more improved speed to trade ideas with AI. You will be left behind if you don't have this superpower and resort to tapping your phone to communicate with the new demigods. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. The future is going to be crazy.
Now, if they already have the ability to read and write signals to the brain, a bidirectional brain-computer interface, as the guy from OpenBCI called it, then won't it just be that much more convenient to be offered all the benefits of BCI without having to fuss with all the messy surgery business of having wires implanted in your skull? If it's like, oh, hey, guess what? Turns out we don't even need to use the chip. Well, you can just have the BCI. And that does have to make you stop and wonder if all of the insanity that went down 4 years ago with the fancy new nanoparticle technology that was rolled out worldwide, if that might just have something to do with this BCI sales pitch also. Could that have been part of the beta test for, quote, non-invasive brain sensors that are designed to do exactly what this Gallia headset does? Or the wires from the Neuralink? If we think back to the warnings from Edward Snowden, or the predictive programming from Edward Snowden, however you want to look at that, I mean, we're reminded that they certainly didn't ask anyone's permission to turn these new portable communication devices into tracking and surveillance devices. We thought it was all about convenience and safety, and today most people would feel almost incapable of leaving their house without it, even though we used to be able to go off on long trips and fly across the country without having any such device on our person. So have we really become empowered or enslaved? And when you reflect on how we were all trained to change the way we live to such a degree already, that does make it seem far less impossible to imagine that we could just as easily be trained to accept the idea of having this permanent connection between the internet and our own brains. That we can actually come to think of this as not only normal, but the only conceivable way to live, just like people do now with their cell phones. Despite the fact that they've already admitted that if they can read thought patterns, they can also transmit them and implant them. They can theoretically influence thoughts on a scale that is even beyond the algorithmic manipulation made possible by the screen-fed social media control right now. We've officially reached the point where tinfoil hat discussion is no longer just a figure of speech. I just keep coming back to that over the past 4 or 5 years, thinking like how bizarre and ironic and almost poetic that is. But speaking of shills for enhancing ourselves with AI, did you guys see this video that was put out the other day by Ian Carroll?
So I've got a confession to make. I've been using AI to do research. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how are you going to trust it? It's going to lie to you. It's going to hallucinate. You're going to get dumb. That's cheating. And I get it. That's how I felt for a long time too. But I'd be willing to bet that by the end of this episode, you'll agree with me that AI is a way more effective way to do research than using search engines.
And I mean, people have already been finding his whole sudden rise to, TikTok and YouTube fame sort of bizarre, to where now he's like a regular on the Candace Owens show, and he's been on Rogan and all that. When like not that long ago, he started out making videos about what was it, like chemicals in shampoo? I don't even know. He blew up on TikTok after the pandemic, and now here he is talking about how he's using AI to go through all these emails between Epstein and Ehud Barak and explaining how he'd never be able to sift through and decode and translate all this information without AI. I just find it quite ironic that we're having people advocate for the use of AI in order to, quote, expose the various connections of a criminal like Epstein, when AI is the very thing that replaced Epstein. And Epstein was all about transhumanism anyways. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. So whether Ian Carroll was brought into prominence specifically for this task of trying to get the truther community on board with using AI, or if he's just really a regular dude who blew up on TikTok after COVID and found himself with this huge platform, it's kind of neither here nor there, because at the very least, he's a clueless sellout who has no idea what he's advocating for. But personally, I never did trust that mustache.